All right, we're learning a little bit more about the three latest unidentified objects that the U.S. says it shot down over North America just this past weekend. After a classified briefing, several U.S. senators didn't say a lot, didn't say much, but did say it appears the incidents pose no threat, though, to public safety. And the White House says the leading theory is that the objects were balloons for actually benign purposes. Let's bring in Oren Liebman, who's joining us live now from the Pentagon. So, Oren, when you think about the four objects that were shot down, many of them are hard to recover precisely because of the exact location as to where they were shot down. But in terms of the object in South Carolina that was recovered, what are officials saying about that one?
That's the one with which we have the most information. That was a Chinese surveillance balloon, according to the United States government, the White House, and of course the Pentagon, and that's why they followed it so closely as it made its way across the United States. And the recovery effort has been the most robust. It's also in the easiest spot to recover, just a few miles off the South Carolina coast, and there isn't as much weather to deal with. Certainly the seas haven't been great for recovery, but they have allowed for recovery of a significant portion of the wreckage, according to a defense official, and that means that electronics have been recovered, part of the structure has been recovered. The surface effort to pick up the debris, that's already wrapped up as of earlier this month. So now it's down to the function of sending off what has been picked up to the FBI for a thorough analysis of what sort of technology it had, what sort of capability it had. But that is ongoing as the U.S. tries to learn more about the other objects, the three objects shot down on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And those are in far more remote locations that are harder to get to. The White House now saying, look, we may not be able to pick this up, even if they said that's what it would take, that recovery effort, to know for sure what these were. And that's why there are a number of questions that remain even after this classified briefing for senators that haven't yet been answered. And that remains an open question. Still, the White House and John Kirby, a spokesman for the National Security Council for Strategic Coordination and Communication, has basically come out and said, look, the best theory we have right now is that at this point, these were simply benign balloons, but in the absence of in the absence of more definitive information, those were shot down in the 20,000 to 40,000 foot range to make sure they didn't pose a threat to any civilian aviation that would fly through this airspace. So even as we learn more information about that South Carolina object, more questions about the other three objects, though it is worth noting that senators such as Mitt Romney and others have come out of that briefing saying they're at least fairly confident at this point they were not a threat or a danger to the U.S. population. Zane.
And Oren, obviously we've talked about this idea that now that there is more scrutiny, it appears as though officials are sort of looking for and finding more of these objects. But clearly, my assumption is this cannot be the new normal, the idea of shooting down every sort of possible object. That wouldn't be sustainable, I don't think. Just walk us through the timeline before officials seem to find another way of handling these objects, especially when it comes to diplomacy.
So after the first object, that is the Chinese surveillance balloon, was discovered, NORAD essentially adjusted its radars to make them more sensitive. These are radars that were designed essentially to look for fast-moving, high-flying objects, such as, of course, Russian bombers or Russian aircraft. After the adjustment with the first object, they were set to pick up slower-moving and smaller objects, and that's what allowed them to pick up the other three objects that have been described as metallic for the first two, or octagonal for the third one, with or without a payload in some cases. The question is, how do you move forward? And this is exactly what they're trying to get at. The process of refining what the radars search for is ongoing, according to a defense official, to make sure that they pick up anything that could be a serious threat to national security, but to rule out anything that would be more benign. But as this process is ongoing, there are these iterations of how do you refine that. The U.S. has said that it shot down those first, the second, third, and fourth because they were in civilian airspace. But this isn't really a sustainable process if you're simply going to shoot down everything that's detected. So it is a process to figure out when and where. And the administration at this point simply insisting they did not bow to political pressure to quickly shoot the other objects out of the sky. And yet all of these will be handled on a case-by-case basis for now.
All right, we'll see when officials decide to change course. Oren Liebman live for us there. Thank you so much. As for China, it's pointing a finger of blame at the US as well for the balloon problems. China's foreign ministry spokesperson says the US has balloons circling the globe, and those balloons have invaded Chinese airspace more than 10 times, actually, since May. But he offered no photos and no other evidence to back up that claim. US officials scoffed at that and said that there are no US balloons flying over China.